It's good to see that everybody's so happy and delighted on this Friday. So we are going to go ahead and get started so that we can finish and you can carry on with your laughter and delight throughout the building and for the rest of the day. So. Good morning, I'm Mitch Mitchell, Chair of the San Diego Housing Commission Board of Commissioners, and it is now 9:08 a.m. on March 14th, 2025, and I'm going to call to order today's regular meeting and special meeting of the board. We are meeting in person this morning with commissioners, staff, and members of the public in attendance. We have a quorum of 4 commissioners present. Video of today's meeting is also being streamed live online. The link to watch today's meeting is on the Housing Commission website at www.sdhc.org. To accommodate additional members of the public who may wish to participate in today's meeting, we have set up an overflow room down the hall, and the live streaming video of today's meeting will be shown in the overflow room. Speaker slips are available in the overflow room for members of the public who wish to provide comment to the board today. Our staff will bring those speaker slips to me here in the boardroom. At the appropriate time, our staff will also escort speakers from the overflow room to make sure they are able to provide their comments to the board in person. Members of the public here in the boardroom or in the overflow room who wish to provide comments to the board will need to complete a speaker slip and then submit your speaker slip to our Vice President of Communications, Scott Marshall, who is standing on the side of the room. In the overflow room, submit your speaker slip to our communications staff in the room. In a moment, I will be proposing that agenda items 100 and 101 be placed on the consent agenda for today's meeting. Members of the public may provide comments about the items on the consent agenda before submitting a speaker slip for that item before the board considers the consent agenda. Also, please note that item 104 on today's agenda will be rescheduled to our meeting next month, and will not be presented today. And the board's closed session will occur at the end of today's meeting. Bless you. To speak in favor, are you okay? To speak in favor of any item on today's agenda, please submit the gold speaker slip. To speak in opposition to any agenda item, please submit the pink speaker slip, and those who wish to address the board about a topic that is not on the agenda should fill out a white speaker slip. Members of the public will have 3 minutes each to provide their comments about agenda items or non-agenda public comments. However, if a large number of people wish to provide non-agenda public comments or speak on a single agenda item, comments will be limited to 1 minute each. Collective testimony by those who support or oppose an item shall be limited to no more than 15 minutes total per side. So when I call your name, please step to the podium, state your name for the record, and begin making your comments. So we will now move to the non-agenda public comment period, and I have 2 speaker slips in front of me. The first one is Doris Cintrone. Doris. Good morning, Doris.
Good morning. Good morning, Honorable Chairman, Councilman. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm here today because I was invited to be able to give my comment to you. I am one of the clients on Section 8, Doris Cintron. My background was, I was a nurse. I worked for the Veterans Hospital in La Jolla. I worked for the American Red Cross, and I worked for the many organizations, Planned Parenthood and so forth. Thousands of people I've taken care of, 3 different laboratories. I'm also a very talented person in singing, but I'm 71, so who cares? I went to American Idol in Los Angeles, but discriminated because they were having financial defraudings and all kinds of situations, and was mistreated and kicked out because you shouldn't have a walker also. And so with that, I couldn't represent my town, San Diego, so that really hurt my feelings. But I came here today because my life is threatened by the managers that are maniac, diabolically insane type people since the owner had died 2021, July the 11th. And from there on, a thug non-manager took over, 6'11" or 10. His name was Tyler Signetos, very frightening gangster type. And they've all been gangsters. They've been making millions of dollars from the rents and making sure that we're not provided proper services, like don't go high class on this ever. A lot of people missing, not just evicted, but just plainly odd. A lot of furnitures, trucks that I had seen that were going to Mexico with all these furniture items. Anyway, to get to the immediate, on this past Thursday, the manager threatened me that, no work will be done, that she will not take any reports, that I should mind my business. Like, I don't even want to be in their business, but she's like the gangsterette. And so when she orientates me, badgers me hard, I just tried to be, reasonable, and I said, I've always complied, been respectful, decent, kind, and whatever you say, I'll do, just get through that. So, but when I went upstairs, changed my clothes, I came back downstairs, walked through the garage. She had two of her thugs there that were maintenance men, and she was in her, opened up her car hood, and I don't know if she had a weapon or not, but it seemed like she definitely did, so I called the police. She was treating me, since she'd taken the job, with many moments of mental cruelty, and not that it isn't happening to the 200 tenants as well. I mean, they just were in this renegade game that was it's still frightening. I was afraid to come today. I had to stay up all night just to get here. I'm afraid to come in and out of the building. I don't know what they'll do to me when I get back. I know too much. I'm too intelligent. Anybody with intelligence is out.
Okay. Doris, we appreciate it. What we do is I'm going to have the team take your comments and get more information, more detail, so we can look further into the situation.
I should hope that you guys take over the buildings.
Okay. Thank you very much for coming today.
All right,
we appreciate it. Thank you. Okay, next up, I believe it's Cliff Weaver. Good morning.
Thank you. And you have no idea who I am, so let me take 10 seconds to establish some credibility. I'm a retired attorney after representing public school districts for over 40 years. And I have an inherent dislike of people that come to public meetings and just complain and criticize without solutions. So I'm, to a certain extent, going to hate myself today. Last night, as I was driving in my nice warm car and my nice warm jacket, I drove by a bunch of homeless people at the bottom of Presidio Park near Interstate 8. And then I noticed that the public restroom there had a sign over it, closed. And then I went to eat at a restaurant, had a nice warm meal. And then in the middle of the night, underneath my warm electric blanket, in a bedroom that also contains a full-size tournament slate pool table, I was thinking, what are those people doing tonight? And why are they there? And where can they go? So I usually do a lot of research before I come and speak, but I didn't have time. But I did do a little research. And my first thought is, but for the grace of God, go I. And there's a lot of people, yes, there's some people out there with meth, and you can't do anything with them. But there's a lot of people out there that could not spend another $200 or $300 to keep their rent going or to buy their groceries. When I've talked to the city council, that's where I've gone. That's where the prior city council president has gone, and I hope you're going there. But my comment is a little bit deeper than that. Very quickly, I looked at your website. You have 25 people on your it's called your leadership team, okay? I'm sure they all do something. I'm just as sure that they probably all or most of them have their own secretaries, and they're probably their own staff. I did not have time to go through Transparent California, or California Transparent, and find out what their salaries are, but I did a couple years ago, and I think it was well over $2 million, if I recall correctly. I would like to see some of that money go directly to people that are on the borderline, that are facing homelessness, but if you give them a couple $100 a month, no strings attached, they can avoid the homelessness, not be out in the freezing cold. I also real quickly tried to find out, okay, if I'm homeless, what do I do to find a shelter tonight? And I made some calls. I suggest each of you, I don't have much time, so I suggest each of you call 211 and say, I'm not homeless, but if I was homeless, what would I do? And you'll find out that there's not enough temporary shelters. I'm not talking about like the Kettner and Vine project. That was a whole different thing. I'm talking about when it's cold outside, wet and rainy, what do you do? And let's make it even worse. You don't have a smartphone, or your smartphone isn't charged because you don't have any access to electricity. Thank you very much. Thank you for your service. Good luck. I wish I could have more time for solutions, but I don't have any. Maybe you do. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Cliff. Thank you for coming down. Next non-agenda public item is Leah Waters. Good morning.
Good morning. I am here today to express some concerns. I have some very similar experiences to the first speaker with management and threats with housing. This is a property that is compliance monitored by you guys. It's a partnership, but I believe it's a private owners. And I am here many years from Hurricane Katrina. Got here, went to disaster center, was placed on a waiting list based on where I said I was, instead of being placed on all of the waiting lists for housing, and waited 12 years to receive, after changing my life and readjusting and starting over, still needing assistance with rent here in San Diego, which was very different from New Orleans rent, and waited a very long time to get that assistance. I'm currently having some health issues. I've become homeless while having my voucher paying my rent because of habitability issues and lack of management's response or low responsiveness. I understand this is not the property that I'm at is not a San Diego Housing Commission owned and managed property. So when I have brought it up to Housing Commission staff, there's very little that can be done. And I've reached out to my city council member, my board of supervisor member, Department of Environmental Health and Quality, Air Pollution Control District, Air Resources Board, different community, everybody. And I'm unable to resolve issues with the unit and habitability. So I'm finding myself having to sleep in my car again while paying rent. And I'm really in need of some assistance here. This is not the first time this has happened. So if someone can address this, help me figure it out, tell me what I need to do. I've been told I have to provide evidence. I cannot take photographs of what people are doing inside of their unit that's adjoining mine, causing my home to be uninhabitable. My smoke alarms are going off at 3 a.m. There's all kind of fumes, gas, all kind of stuff coming in there, and I can't live there. So I now have health issues that have gotten worse. I need treatment, and I can't do it in that environment. Thank you. So please, unfortunately, we have to share this with you, but I have with many people. But I do need help with this.
Okay. All right. We will have the staff take some more information from you about your location. And again, it isn't a commission-managed property, but we'll look into see what advice we can give you.
Excellent.
Thank you very much.
All right.
Thank you, Leah. All right. That is the last of the public comments on non-agenda items. There are no other speaker slips have been submitted. So I'll now ask commissioners if there are any comments that you would like to make. Vice Chair Klumpner.
Casey?
Casey, you thought he was going to skip you today, didn't you? I saw that look on your face. You were like, he's not going to ask.
Good morning, Commissioners. I'm here to provide an update on the Coordinated Shelter Intake Program. So in the month of February, we received 2,049 referrals for shelter. We were able to accommodate 234, or 11% of all requests. and we were not able to meet 89% of the requests.
Wait, Casey, can you repeat the numbers again?
Sure. So 2,049 total referrals, and 234 we were able to place. So that's 11% of folks that requested. I do want to note, though, that we did have 2 shelters that had intake suspended because they're in the process of getting ready to move. That's the Tay Shelter and Rachel's Promise, which will be moving to their new sites in the next couple weeks. So we did have to suspend intakes for a few weeks there. But the number one reason is no male top bunk or no male bottom bunk, number 2. And number 3 is no female bottom. For a year to date, we've received 16,080 referrals for shelter and have completed 1,982, or 12%. And the number one reason, number 2, is the same as the monthly one, but so 57% of requests aren't met because we don't have a male bed. And just noting on inclement weather, we have activated, actually with today, it'll be 50 times so far. This season, we've served 5,422 individuals through inclement weather shelter, including 97 families and 167 children. So the utilization rate has been 70%, which is higher than in recent years.
Casey, and we had planned this year, so we had 50 inclement weather activations, and we had planned for how many?
52.
We had planned for 52.
Well, actually, we planned for 30-something,
Okay.
but we had to increase it at the end of January because we were exceeding what we would normally would have activated by that point in time in the year.
Okay, so the budget was 38, and we're at 52. Mm-hmm. Okay. Further questions?
No, I think I'm good.
Thank you, Casey. Casey, just real quick, also while you're up here, since you were talking about the inclement weather activations, I know one of the things that we've really done, the team has done a great job of, we've improved our communications on this when the weather's bad. I do know that Lisa and I actually talk about what the weather looks like going forward, and our weather center is happy to provide that information. What I probably should do is connect the 2 of you directly to Brian, so it comes in every that would be nice. But we're utilizing social media, we're using a variety of channels to make sure people know.
Yes, and most importantly, I think we are getting the message out a lot sooner than it's taken us a while, but we're generally by 8:15 a.m. we're having the decision made and information's going out there. The majority of folks that do access inclement weather shelters still report, though, that the way they hear about shelter is word of mouth. So I think it starts with the outreach workers spreading the news, and then it goes around very quickly.
Okay. There are just some ideas. I mean, there are a few electronic boards downtown that maybe we just need to think about how we can increase the awareness so that it's not always word of mouth. But I think that you guys have done a great job thus far of we're now doing it during the week and on weekends, which is a nice addition. So I think there are some things that we may be able to look at that are the good old-fashioned way that's just signage downtown. So
sorry, just to clarify, we've always done it 7 days a week, including holidays. We do it for every single day for this. So I want to clarify that. That's always been the case. The big change is that we used to check at like 7 and noon, right, to see if the weather had changed. We're making that decision and erring on the side of caution in the first thing in the morning so that we have more time to get staff ready and to get the word out. So that was the big shift. But
yeah, I think
I like the board's idea.
The board's idea would help, and there's some easy things. For example, the city has a board at the Civic Theater that could easily be used for activations. We just need to think about it and try and increase the awareness, and I think that would go a long way. And Lisa's right; they've always done it for 7. I think the big change was the city didn't always provide information on the weekends. So that's the reason why this has become so important. Is the city does not do any notification on the weekends, so we should look at the signage and the boards where possible. Okay.
Mitch?
Commissioner Cushman.
I just wanted to note that I could be corrected, but I believe our staff, April, comes back 2 days a week? Correct?
Yes, that is correct.
And I'm elated. I just want
effective April 7th, I believe it is.
Okay.
They'll be in office 2 days a week. Yeah.
So I just want to put on the record, I think that is great. I think we should be back 4 days a week, but we'll worry about that the next time, I guess.
If only we had the room.
Well, we have a lot of room in this city, believe me. There's a lot of office buildings downtown with vacancies. I think it's a good time, though, to take a look at all our public communications. We are customer facing, customer serving. Coming into this building is not the easiest thing in the world. You know, there's a sign in the elevator that says go to 3. I don't know if you come off the street, it's not so easy. But let's look at, our customer facing. Let's look at how you call us. And I would suggest to staff, try to call in here sometime. I think our website could use upgrading. So let's just look at all of our customer facing. I think that'll help. I'm elated that we're coming back 2 days a week because I think it's important for people to know each other and to talk about how are you solving this problem? How am I solving this problem? So I'm elated we're going to be working together again and seeing each other, even if it's only 2 days a week. But it's encouraging. So I just want to put on the record that I'm elated we're coming back 2 days a week. I wish it was more. Thank you.
I'm excited about it too, and you can tell what happens at the beginning of
I know, just based on the joy and chatter that was going on, and when I was trying to start the meeting, they all miss each other, clearly. All right, Vice Chair Klempner.
Sorry, Casey, I'm going to come back to you because I've been thinking about this. And I'm sorry, did you tell us what the inclement weather shelter utilization rate was this past month? I think I missed that.
So we look at it from a whole perspective,
Okay.
so 70%.
Okay.
I think last month it was at 67, so it's gone up
Okay.
since the rains.
Yeah, I think what we talked about earlier this year was that we had a dry winter.
Yeah.
And then we jinxed it. And,
Right.
Yeah, we did.
by bringing that conversation up, then the skies opened up, and so.
Yep.
But the 70% number this month makes sense, and it has been cold and wet.
And you mentioned word of mouth. I mean, that's not surprising to me. I'm always very curious, kind of how many people who would qualify and be eligible for these services are, picking up on things via social media. I imagine that's a little bit harder if you're on the street. Within the word of mouth, do we know how much of that is from outreach versus word of mouth between residents?
I don't think we track exactly. We just say, I think the options are like 211, PD, or out. I'm not sure, but I can
Okay.
definitely check on that.
We
I
might
don't
want
recall on top of my
to think
head.
about that going forward because
Okay.
I think that, especially if we're planning on having, I mean, this clearly has been a bigger part of the program this year than in prior years. And if we assume that that's likely to continue, then I think figuring out, what exactly is working.
Yep.
I mean, we're throwing a lot out there, which is great, and we have a lot of people coming in. And I think knowing how they're getting in would be really helpful. Last question I have, I think, is what happens with abatement actions when we are in an inclement weather period?
Actually, I'm not. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, I can follow up.
I'm very curious whether the inclement weather shelter system is being integrated into abatement actions that are happening. Both because it seems like an unideal time to be displacing people, especially when we're talking about cold rain. Mm-hmm. And additionally, I'm also wondering if since that's outside of our control, if the city is going to continue abatements during inclement weather, at a minimum that they, I'm wondering whether they have any transportation options to those shelters when that's taking place.
I'll definitely follow up on that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Casey. I would just add on that. I think that Commissioner Cushman, you're right. This is the time to think about new ideas, and as we bring people back, I think when I see people come in the lobby, they generally interface with the security downstairs. It may be an opportunity for sometimes to have information, our own information table downstairs as well. And on the word of mouth, Commissioner Klempner, I think one of the things what made me think about the signage Casey, is that I do appreciate the social media. I see all the notes, I see the emails, but I think that some of this is we may have to go back old-fashioned. I think about Clean and Serve. On the days that we're activating, having a partnership with Clean and Serve where they're actually handing out information about where shelters are. There are a variety of ideas, and I also think that we should talk to Sharon at MTS. I think that they can use their signage sometimes to provide information about the inclement shelters being open, because they have digital video signage all over all their stops. So that would also help. So just some ideas to consider. Okay. All right. Seeing no further comments, Lisa, we will move on to the President and CEO report.
Excuse me. I will just also mention with inclement weather, normally our period is we monitor it through March. We have seen our rainy season sort of moving into spring, so it is possible, depending on what we see, that we may extend. That obviously generally extends funds. This program comes out of SDHC local funds, but in previous years, as we've seen the rainy season move, we have lengthened our monitoring time to make sure that those resources continue to be available. So just last mention on that. All right, good morning. Last week, I was in Washington, D.C., myself and a few of our staff for meetings with federal lawmakers. We met directly with Representative Scott Peters and staff from the offices of Sarah Jacobs, Mike Levin, and Juan Vargas. And we participated in a California Association of Housing Authorities meeting with U.S. Senator Adam Schiff. These meetings provided us the opportunity to advocate to protect crucial funding for vital housing assistance, and also to hear from our federal representatives on how the current environment is shaping up around affordable housing funding. Those programs, of course, for us include our housing choice vouchers and project-based vouchers. During briefings and in my presentations to you earlier this year, I've previously discussed with you the fiscal challenges we and other public housing authorities are experiencing. We have been told to expect cuts to federal funding that already had been insufficient to meet the financial need for our voucher programs, and in fact, effective January 1st of this year, we were experiencing an additional 2% cut on top of the inadequate funding that we received in the last calendar year. We were also notified late last week that the federal government may be ending funding for the emergency housing vouchers nationwide many years earlier than expected. This is approximately 5 years earlier than had been anticipated based on the original 2021 notice about the start of the emergency housing voucher program, which became so critical during COVID. We currently have more than 460 families in our emergency housing choice voucher program. We still have very unclear information from HUD, and we are expecting further communication that we hope will help us better determine how long funding will be available to support the continuation of the EHV, or emergency voucher program. We're also hoping to identify potential options that families on this program may be able to access to support their housing stability and prevent them being at risk of or experiencing homelessness. I have to be really frank that we just do not have a clear understanding right now with the communication we've received from the federal government about how long we will be able to continue this program or how long our funding will last. We do anticipate receiving a more formal final program renewal amount from HUD in April, so we will be continuing to bring information forward, and our team is already working to see how we can find other resources to support these families. Our goal always being that the 17,000 families we support through our rental assistance subsidy continue to remain stably housed and assisted by us. Our meetings in Washington, D.C. also occurred during the conference of the National Association of Housing and Redevelopment Officials, sometimes referred to as NARO. NARO is one of the national organizations we continue to work with to advocate strongly for funding to support our programs and to monitor legislative activities in Washington. We also work with the California Association of Housing Authorities in support of our legislative activities at the state and federal levels, and I will actually be back in DC next week, meeting with the Council of Large Public Housing Authorities to further advocate for funding and try to identify the direction that our continuing resolution that is looking like it will be in effect will have and what those impacts might be on our voucher programs and other rental assistance programs, as well as affordable housing development programs over the coming year. On March 6, we provided informational updates to the City Council's Land Use and Housing Committee about 2 programs that provide essential assistance to prevent homelessness among families struggling financially in our community. I wanted to share an abridged version of those updates with you this morning. First is our Housing Instability Prevention Program, which is also known as HIP, that is run under Casey's oversight through our Housing First San Diego operations team. This program was created with funding the City Council allocated specifically to develop it. HIP provides life-changing assistance for individuals and families to help them achieve stability in their housing and avoid homelessness. HIP launched in September 2022. The program provides flat-rate shallow subsidies and case management services for generally up to 24 months. And HIP serves individuals and families. Through the end of February, we had 302 households enrolled in HIP. It can support up to 300 households at any given time. We actively manage the inflow and outflow of this program, so we were over-enrolled by 2 with the anticipation of 2 households' upcoming exits. Since the program started, HIP has served a total of 413 households, totaling 917 people. On average, it costs $671 in subsidy per month per household to stabilize someone's housing crisis and to prevent homelessness. The average HIP participant was paying over 76% of their income toward rent when they were referred to our program. Once enrolled and the subsidy is applied, the average HIP participant spends 43% of their income on rent, making their portion of rent much more affordable. 95% of HIP participants are either renting a deed-restricted affordable housing unit or already are in a naturally occurring affordable housing unit compared to the housing market. So they are already, when they come onto the program, in what we would consider affordable housing, and yet still paying over 76% of their income towards rent.
Excuse me, Lisa, did you say there's another 100 available though?
So total 400, we have capacity for 400.
The rolling capacity is a total of 300. To date, since the program started, we've served 416. So some of those folks have exited the program, then we enroll. So think of it as a rolling 300 on any given month. HIP serves households with low income experiencing a housing crisis and at risk of homelessness in the city of San Diego. The flat rate subsidy is $250, $500, and $750 or $1,000 per month for up to 24 months for eligible households. And extensions may be granted for households on a fixed income or that continue to be severely rent burdened without the subsidy. In addition to the monthly rental assistance, HIP helps to pay for other housing-related expenses such as past due rent and utilities so that we can stabilize their housing going forward. And the program also offers wraparound case management to enrolled households. This is a critical component of the program. The case managers work with households over the course of the program to create a long-term housing stability plan, to identify opportunities to increase household income and decrease expenses, to make referrals to community-based resources, and identify any other potential solutions to stabilize their housing so that when the program ends, they can remain stable when that subsidy is no longer available. We receive referrals to HIP from 211 through their interactions with callers experiencing a housing crisis and their operation of the Housing Commission's Housing First San Diego hotline. Our hotline screens people who call in and cross-reference the information they provide about their housing circumstances with available programs throughout the community, including HIP. So our hotline really looks at what program that we operate or other community programs that are out there will best meet their needs and refers them to the best option. Information about HIP is also available on the Help with Your Rent and Housing First San Diego pages on our website. Our website can be translated into languages available through Google Translate, so making that website more accessible to folks where English is not their first language. And referrals to HIP are also available on 211's Community Information Exchange platform that many service providers and entities can access. Anyone experiencing housing instability that accesses a partnering agency within the Community Information Exchange is able to directly refer to our Housing First San Diego hotline to be assessed for services. So if they don't know about our website, they don't know about 211, that provider that works within the Community Information Exchange can get them directly connected through their own outreach and resources. So any way that we can reach people to make sure that they know what is available to them. Per council direction, the program gives priority to seniors aged 55 or older, which make up 46% of currently enrolled households. people of any age with a disability, which make up 36% of households, and families with a child aged 5 or younger, which accounts for 47% of program households. We also prioritize transition-aged youth between the ages of 18 and 24. That makes a very small percent of current households. There are a lot of other very specific transition-aged youth-related programs that transition-aged youth can get connected to. Since we launched HIP about 2.5 years ago, 111 households have exited the program. 72 remain permanently housed. 20 have exited to other, which is sort of like a catch-all referral designation or data element. This can refer to an unknown destination due to not completing an exit interview with staff, or these households may have passed away. That does happen when you are serving a priority elderly disabled household population. 17 moved to a temporary housing situation, including moving in with friends or family. 1 transitioned to an institutional environment that may better meet their needs, and 1 household experienced homelessness. In addition to the 72 households that remained permanently housed at exit, 302 households are enrolled and are stably housed. This data is as of the end of February 2025 and reflects information that the participant reported to program staff at the time they exit the program. The average length of assistance for the 111 households that have exited is 10 months. So that is really showing that when case management can work and we can provide folks other options, increase their opportunities, we can exit them to something that meets their needs and then make room for another program participant to enroll. HIP is still a new program. With the 302 households still enrolled, we understand that it may be too soon to draw conclusions about the average length of assistance for this group and whether we'll continue to see this sort of trend as more households transition. Our teams continue to track and monitor exit data on a regular basis. This is really important so the program can be dynamic and we can refine the program to better meet unique populations' needs. The data represent real families HIP has assisted through housing challenges, and one of the households consists of Mark and Joseph. Health challenges they experienced affected their ability to work and made their financial struggles more difficult. 211 connected them to HIP. At the time, they were spending almost all their income on their rent. They struggled to pay bills, using their credit card to fill gaps, and feared becoming homelessness. With HIP's assistance, they reduced the percentage of their income going to rent. A housing commission case manager helped them know how to manage their finances more effectively, and they were able to pay off some bills and stabilize their housing situation. Mark and Joseph were also able to increase their household income to the point where they no longer needed assistance and they moved to an area that better fit their needs. The City Council's support for the creation and continuation of the eviction prevention program has been instrumental in ensuring renters with low income who are struggling financially in our city receive important assistance they need. This program provides free legal services and related assistance to help prevent evictions and the homelessness that may result. The Eviction Prevention Program, or EPP, assists eligible tenants with low income in the city of San Diego who face eviction for non-payment of rent. The Housing Commission oversees the program and contracts with the Legal Aid Society to operate the program. EPP was initially developed in 2021 to address the need for eviction prevention assistance after the statewide eviction moratorium expired on September 30th of that year. It was created to help address a potential increase in evictions and confusion about what eviction protections are available for renter households. In more recent years, the program has also assisted households to understand and avail themselves of the protections available through the city's residential tenant protection ordinance. The program is a centralized resource for eligible renters in the city. Thousands of San Diego families have benefited from the continuing existence of this program since its inception. More than 740 eligible tenants have received full legal assistance, and nearly 4,700 households have received limited legal assistance. The program has received and responded to more than 4,200 hotline calls and provided more than 35,000 referrals to other community resources. And nearly 4,900 eligible tenants with low income have received additional services from the program. The services provided through the Eviction Prevention Program include education and outreach, clinical assistance, legal representation, case management services, payment of litigation costs, and housing stability funds, which can cover back owed rent, utilities, security deposits, rental application fees, groceries, hotel stays, and moving expenses. The Legal Aid Society tracks and reports data to the Housing Commission about the program. For example, from July 2024 through January 2025, EPP served 1,236 clients whose cases were completed. Of those clients, at least 88.7% avoided homelessness. That's a great outcome. Yeah. More than 80% were able to remain in the same unit, which is, again, a great outcome because that means people remain stable in that unit and don't have to start over. And more than 8% secured a new rental housing unit. The Legal Aid Society also has shared with us some of the stories of clients EPP has assisted changing the names of these individuals for their privacy. One of those clients was Ava, who was unable to return to work due to complications from her high-risk pregnancy. Wow. Her partner had to stop working to help care for Ava and their children. Her partner was back to work by the time they connected with the EPP for help. They were already significantly behind. Their family was able to meet their ongoing monthly rent payment. However, they were already facing eviction due to $10,849 in rental arrears, which could have resulted in homelessness. Through EPP, Legal Aid Society negotiated a stay and pay settlement agreement for Ava. They also helped Ava and her family connect to other community resources to help pay part of the back owed rent. And EPP Emergency Housing Stability Funds covered the balance, making the family current with their rent. With the EPP's help, Ava and her family avoided eviction and remained in their home. They are able to pay their rent going forward. The Housing Instability Prevention Program and Eviction Prevention Program provide the type of assistance necessary to help families like those we've discussed today avoid homelessness. I can't emphasize enough the value of these prevention programs. Without programs like this, there would be more folks needing shelter beds. There would be more folks calling into the system. It is much more expensive and much harder to exit them back out of the system to homelessness once they've experienced homelessness, let alone the impact on the quality of life, education, health conditions, and just general trauma that people experience when they fall into homelessness. So these programs are so valuable and so successful. I can't thank this board enough, the City Council, the Mayor's Office for making sure that funding continues to remain available. These are critical components to these programs. We've had great conversations with the Mayor's Office going into this budget year around these programs, and I think create incredible value to the people that experience them. So the EPP, I believe, is around $3 million right now, and the HIP program, I think, is around 5.2 in this budget year. Oh, God, I still remember the numbers. You know, you get into this position, you can forget those kind of things. We've got great staff, and thank you to the Legal Aid Society for their work. It's incredible what they do, and to the folks in our HIP program that do this work as well. We also have a Serving Seniors component of the HIP program, and the folks at Serving Seniors do an incredible job stabilizing their families. And that concludes my presentation.
Thank you, Lisa. That was an excellent overview, and it will lead me to make a comment about the importance of the journey and the days ahead. First of all, I want to say, on the eviction prevention program, I remember this time last year, you and I were having that conversation with City Hall about the importance of preserving the funding, and I want to say thank you, up front immediately to the mayor and Paola, because they did listen to us and our concerns. Clearly, that shows the program is working. I think that the thing that concerns me, and Mr. C, you'll remember this, when we went through the 2008 crash and the number of people that we saw surge into instability led us at the food bank to create the Community Cares Program, where we were using the old-fashioned way of getting information into people's hands about what was available to help them. And it was actually hard to watch people struggle. I think we're going to see the same thing again with all the turmoil that's happening and the unknown about HUD. And the unknown about where we're headed, and Lisa, you saying that we're going to end that potentially we're ending the housing choice voucher program that's serving 400 families now early, and there's no solution to it. I mean, I think we have to come up with our own solutions to try and help protect people, and this will be really hard. So what I would suggest is we probably, Mr. C, you remember we did Community Cares, we began the great collaborative with all the other entities that offer services. So I think it's great that we have legal aid helping. I know Casey Castillo sometimes watches these meetings. Casey, get ready, because we're going to need you. I know that what we learned in 2008 was there are so many programs that are available to people that they didn't know about. Discount dental, discount health, discount all these things. And I think we ultimately, I think about your comment about the Tay youth, 18 to 24, who don't know where to look, and it's hard to actually get their attention. But again, this comes back to we are going to have to be really creative and really quickly to protect people from the struggle that lies ahead as the continued turmoil and the elimination of programs happens rapidly. And so I just would say that I think that everybody on this board would agree that we need to lean in. There are some things that we learned in the past, and Casey, I look forward to talking with you about you and Lisa about some of this, because it's now necessary. And hearing the numbers and how the programs work, the surge of people coming to us for help is about to happen. So. Mr. C.
EPP is city general fund,
Yes,
and is it in next year's budget?
yes.
It
yes.
is.
We've
Great.
heard, I know I said that in the talking points, but I was covering a lot. Yes, the mayor's office has been very supportive of both EPP and HIP, as have the city council. We are hearing a just unanimous support for these programs.
And can the money be used for the down payment for the monthly, what am I trying to say? For
Like
your
a-
first month's
Like
payment.
security deposit.
Security
first and last
deposit,
month's
thank
rent.
you very much.
Yes, so HIP.
Because you didn't say up there
HIP
you
keeps
could.
folks in their housing, so we're getting to folks before they're about to be evicted. EPP really gets them when they're looking at an eviction, right? So we actually have two programs that are working very effectively in sort of different milestones on that spectrum of
So
like
I was
intervention
amazed
ahead of time.
in the program that Supervisor Tara Lawson-Reamer had, that we did a diversion program, $1.5 million. Number one was security deposit. I was surprised it wasn't. Number two, of course, was paying monthly rent. But I was fascinated as to how high the security deposit need was versus the monthly rent payment. So I just didn't realize that would be the stumbling block. I thought
Absolutely.
monthly rent would be the stumbling block. The biggest stumbling block was getting the
Well, it's usually
downstroke.
it's usually double the rent, right? So if you're
Yeah.
if your unit, which is a reasonable, like a market rate unit at $2,600 for, and then you're doubling that,
$5,200,
right?
yeah.
So which is why we have had in the past security deposit loan assistance programs, security deposit funding through our LEAP program. That is one of the things the Housing Commission has been doing for a number of years now, trying to bridge that gap to get folks into housing, whether they're searching with a voucher or whether they're coming through our Housing for San Diego programs, is looking at security deposit assistance.
So
Huge
my
need.
final comment would be, and I'm happy to work with the city on this also, but I think there's a role for foundations that's untapped potentially. Maybe it's the EPP program would be a good place to go.
Yeah, we
but I
agree.
think there's foundation money here. That why can't we? Do we have a foundation?
We at least let me.
Does the Housing Commission have a foundation?
When we had the floods, we had to, Suquette actually helped
Yes.
set up something for the first time, and we were able to take corporate.
So we actually have an ongoing
Yeah.
nonprofit. It's Building Opportunities, Inc., where we can receive funding through that. We have received funding through that. We've applied through grants to that program. And then during the floods, Suquette worked with our IT team to build out a website and create basically an opportunity where you can fund that way.
Right.
We
With
are
the
having
Pacific.
some good conversations, a little early now to be discussing them, but we are having some good conversations with some of our more philanthropic partners. So we hope to have more information on that soon.
The importance of the question is Lisa and I have had this conversation about recreating kind of the remember the good old quarterbacks club for the business.
I remember it well. I still have a couple helmets.
Yeah.
If you'd like to contribute.
I think that we've set it up now where we can go out and make some outreach on the EPP. And
So Mitch and I have had a little bit of experience with this, Lisa. Maybe, I know staff knows everything, but maybe we can help you with that, because I think there's definitely some opportunity there.
We always take help. Absolutely.
I mean, that
that's
one
what our
time
board
though, I
is here
called
for.
Jennifer and she was like, "Stop calling me." Just teasing. All right. So, Lisa, I think there's some things that we can do, and I look forward to coming back to a meeting in the future where we talk about all the things that we're setting up to try and address kind of the surge. And clearly, based on what you just said, that there is going to be the need.
Yeah. So, and I will say this. one of the things that's been really important is having, like, and we learned this during COVID, right? So we're not the same agency or city we were pre-COVID. We've learned a lot. We've learned that we actually all have to come together to create that net and to create that support. We know how to do it. We have those muscles. We know how to stretch those muscles. We have a team that is just about better at responding to an emergency, even though we're not an emergency response agency, than just about any team I can think of. So I know we have the right team in place. They're used to thinking creatively. They're used to innovating. We have a great relationship through our community-based advisory board now with our CBOs. So I think we are well positioned to have a very proactive response to this. We are going to encounter challenges we've never experienced before. That
agree.
is just a reality, and they're going to be tough to figure out and navigate. But I know that we will have better outcomes than just about any other agency in the country because of the support we have from all of you, from our city council, from our mayor's office, and because we have the right team.
I agree with you, Lisa. I think that the key on this is let's get ahead of it as much as we possibly can. I think that's sometimes when the crisis hits, we're scrambling. There are some things that we could set up now, and on the EPP, I would be remiss in saying that so many great conversations with former council president Elo Rivera, and he big believer in the program. And I think that there are some things that we need to do to be better information providers, and that's why I look forward to those conversations. Let's be creative. So, all right, Vice Chair Klintner. Oh, Vice Chair. Sorry.
A couple questions about APP. Lisa, do we have any sense of the total scale of or the pool of eligible potential applicants? Meaning, like what I'm looking at here is there was 35,000 referrals to other community resources. How many applications? Do we know how many applications we got total, and of those, how many were qualified for the program? Because I know that the program is not fully funded. Like, we are not providing to everybody.
Right. So potentially folks that applied but may not have got the resource they needed is what you're asking.
Yeah.
Kind of. Do we have that, Deborah? And we can always bring Legal Aid Society back next time.
Unfortunately, I don't have that information, but Legal Aid should. So any questions that you have like that, I can reach out to them and get that information.
And I believe the referral to community resources might be a family that they're working with, that they are also referring to a lot of other resources to sort of make sure that they have an understanding of what's available to them in their environment.
Counting multiple
as opposed
referrals
to,
for the same household.
Right. So they might have referred them to 5 different types of things within the community that could help support and stabilize that household. That's generally what that looks like, but we can get more information.
And then same question for HIP. In a perfect world in which the budget was not the limitation here, how many people do we think we would be serving after we've vetted them?
I can't say with certainty, but what I can tell you is we had 800 calls in the last 6 weeks for housing instability issues.
Okay. Do we track how many applications there are total and how many of them receive assistance?
Well, all 800 would have been screened through our housing assessment to determine what services they may be eligible for. But we don't process the full eligibility because how much time that would take to go through.
Oh, I see. So essentially, as soon as somebody is
availability.
not eligible, we stop processing because...
Well, for HIP in general, yes. We only take applications when we have actual availability because if not, we would have a really long waiting list. We actually got asked this question at Land Use and Housing as well, because in order to do that, they'd have to fill out a lot of paperwork. We'd have to do income verification. We have to do a lot of upfront work, and we don't even have an opening, and we don't have the staffing capacity to do that.
So how do we allocate it given how limited it is compared to the demand? Is it basically just when we have them available, staff allocates them to the most
Well, it's based on the priority
cases,
population. So if we get like 10 applications, we'd look and then see which ones fall within that priority group, and then they would be provided the opportunity first.
Got it.
And it's also important. Sorry. It's also important to note that with 211, doing this type of or initial assessment, the value is that they know all of the programs available that we have because they run our hotline, but also throughout the community or that the county might have, or like, because sometimes there'll be folks that call in and they're outside of the jurisdiction that we serve, right? Or their needs they might not be eligible for this because they don't meet a priority category, but there's another program. So what happens is those folks never get to us because 211 pushes them in a different direction first. So the folks that are actually coming to us for HIP meet the initial eligibility.
So I guess the last thing then, I think you both understand kind of what I'm wondering here, which is it seems like it would be a really valuable thing over the next few years to have a sense of how many people in the city of San Diego are in this category of rent burdened above 70% would qualify for this service. And that I know that that's a different number than how many are actually applying. But I think both of those are kind of important for us because the hard part about this is that we know that this is essentially the most efficient both housing and homelessness intervention that we have. Correct me if I'm wrong there. I can't.
So HIP all in, including case management, is around $1,460 a month. So that's including housing subsidy and case management. The average household, the total cost is $1,460 a month.
Got it.
The average cost for a shelter bed is about $2,200.
Right.
Right. So that shows you.
And our average
you know,
Section 8 all in is?
Our average Section 8 is about just under $1,400 right now, Azucena. Right. So for the subsidy itself.
Right.
Right. So I mean, there's a lot of different ways you can dice what need is. You can look at the residential eviction study as an example. 211 captures a lot of this information, so we can get some reports from them. We can have them come and report to this board. The fact that we just updated our wait list and refreshed our wait list, Azucena, was about 18 months ago that we completed our refresh, or a year ago. So about 15 months ago, we refreshed our waiting list. So the folks that are on our waiting list today, as of about just over a year ago, we knew needed our assistance based on...
Section 8 we're talking.
Section 8,
yeah.
Right. We knew at least were applying because they felt they needed assistance. There's about 69,000, right? 70,000. And it's increasing over 1,000 every month.
Right.
So like we have, and I, that's one of the values of updating a Section 8 waiting list as opposed to just letting it get more and more stale. Is it's a pretty good indication of what the perceived need is out there. I think bringing 211 in so that they can look at their whole database would be very interesting. That's something we could work on.
I hate to frame it this way, but the value of the Section 8 wait list is it gives us a very tangible sense of what the deficit in the resource is, because we know how many we're serving, we know how many we can't serve who are waiting there. I think we need some version of that for HIP because while we may have a stable program right now, the larger question of should this program be growing, and if so, at the expense of what? If it has to be at the expense of something, should it be staying the same, or hopefully in some future point, should it be contracting because we don't have enough people? But we don't really have a sense right now of where this falls. We just know that basically when we put it out, it's gone. It gets snapped up. And so I would be very curious over the next few years, would we have to multiply this program by 10x if we were to intervene in every eligible situation? Would we have to multiply it by 3, or are we only kind of half off? So that question I think would have a lot of value in terms of looking for more efficient interventions. And I mean, again, I think about this very much in the context of, we have much more costly interventions that are also very important, but in the grand scheme of us trying to figure out how much should go over here for this and for that, knowing how many people are in this category where this would be the best thing we could do would be really helpful.
So one of the things I will share is I will argue that one of the things that helps inform us that is the work that CSH did with us on updating the data elements of the community action plan, which specifically identified prevention, right? So we can it's been a while since we've talked about, done an update, so I think that's an important thing to consider is looking at some 211 numbers, looking at referrals over time, that did meet the basic eligibility for HIP, and looking at the community action plan will help us hone in on that. We're also having some conversations with Urban Institute about basically an assessment. So 300 folks on households that we're serving on a HIP program, incredibly important. That's a pilot number. I mean, really, that's a pilot. That's not a program, that's a pilot at 300, when you think of the need that's out here. So one of the things and the conversations we've been having with Urban Institute is really looking at the program from some external eyes, comparing it to other programs within the landscape across the country, looking at the different priority populations. Does this type of subsidy work best for this population? Does this population need something else? So we can start to hone in on, like, where are we being most effective and where does the program need to change? So that's a conversation we're having with them. We just finished a proposal with them and we're looking at that scope. So we are looking at this because we think, one, this can help inform where HIP needs to go in this region, but it can also, again, be one of those areas where the Housing Commission can be a model for other regions and push information out. When you think of the rest of the county, even, for instance. So we can bring some of those conversations back, certainly have a conversation around 211, around the community action plan, and then also look at the last several years of data from HIP as far as the number of referrals that came through that we weren't able to serve.
The more we talk, the more questions I have.
I'm going to stop talking then.
I mean, given that this is like pilot size program, does the administrative costs come down? I mean, like, do we have a high administrative cost because this is something that we're kind of creating from, or a higher administrative cost, or?
I wouldn't think so. I think it would probably remain, we might see some economies of scale, but the administrative cost really is, and I wouldn't call it administrative, but case management, right?
Case management,
So,
yes.
and one of the conversations, frankly, Casey and I have been having is, do we carve off, either with additional funding or with this existing funding, a pilot program of, say, 50 households where we do no case management and we just give the subsidy and we kind of see
And then we see what the value of the case management is.
See what happens. Right? So that's,
yeah.
that is, that is a little bit playing with someone's opportunities. Like so, and what I would say is, with those households, if we did 50 to 75 households, let's say, and if we saw that no case management makes a real difference and at 24 months they're not any better off, then we would extend that program for them and make sure they get the case management. Like, what we don't want to do is see families suffer because we're trying to test our assumptions.
Would we be able to do that while
while
offering everybody case management, but giving people the option to opt out of it?
Yeah, so that's another way to do it. And then knowing that, like, at the end of that period, if they still really need help with stabilizing, then obviously we're going to be responsive. So that's one of the conversations we're having. Is like, and also maybe there's certain populations where all they really need is subsidy and they don't need that level of case management. Right now, I'd say we'd argue that most folks look like they need that case management, but we need to be willing to look at ourselves and test, which is why bringing Urban Institute in to take a look at us in an independent way, I think, is really valuable. They're an incredibly invaluable, organization. They look at work across the country, which is why we're having some conversations with them.
Since I have to fill a little bit of time for the chair here.
Melinda had a question.
Now that he's got the chair, he's going to take it over.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Melinda. I've got one more on 211. But so on 211, so does 211 essentially not refer? So if somebody calls in and they would qualify for this, but we are fully subscribed, it just does not appear as a referral.
Exactly.
For that, right?
So to actually make the referral, they'd have to enter it into the CIE system to get to our staff to call the client and get rolling.
I mean, that makes total sense from a logistics standpoint. Do they have any way of tracking for us when it is fully subscribed and not available, what referrals would have been made, even if those are not like fully applied?
I'll have to see how they can break that
application?
down, because the 800 folks that called in the last 6 weeks, we know it's due to housing instability, but they could qualify for our regular prevention there's a lot of different resources, and like Lisa said, if they, after assessment, they don't qualify, they're going to refer them out to other programs in the community. So we can see how far they can drill down the data.
Even just sort of having the gap of, the referrals were off because it was subscribed. But during that time, X number of people would have been referred, even if that's an imperfect number.
Look into that.
Thank you. Sorry. So my question is, and thank you for all of the great information and the report, but in regards to the voucher program and the threat of the government shutdown, do we have any catch, like a net of some sort, or does that get affected in any way?
So, and I'm looking to Suket and Ozusena because it's been a few years since we've had a government shutdown. I mean, look, if there's going to be a government shutdown, I prefer it happen right now than at the end of the month, right? So sometimes there's a short-term government shutdown. It takes 7 to 10 days, sometimes, as if this happens very often, but it does happen. It takes 7 to 10 days. We can still, our portal with HUD opens back up. We can pull things down. We can push things out. In the past, I believe, and it's been a long time, but I believe there were still some basic staff keeping things open, like the portal. So we were still able to draw down. I don't think we can make any assumptions on what the future is going to look like based on what the past looked like. So we just don't know. But if I was going to say anything to our federal representatives, which is certainly, we've been out in front of them in the last week, is if you're going to have a government shutdown, do it at the middle of the month, like the second week, third week, not the end of the month, because then we want to make sure that, well, for instance, when the freeze happened on January 28th, that was right before our check disbursement, where we push, rental assistance out on behalf of 17,000 families. So, and we did have to pause. So we don't want to have to do that again. We're monitoring it very closely. Yeah. And as challenging as it might be from what we're hearing, the continuing resolution as it stands today would not be beneficial for us. So a government shutdown that forces folks to the table. I'm not supposed to talk about politics, but I'm not talking about politics, I'm talking about funding. Might actually be better off in the long run than the continuing resolutions as it stands today, which is what we're hearing from our federal representatives.
Okay.
I have one more question.
Go ahead.
The only other
Casey, do we know, I don't know if the county's program goes through 211.
Does the county?
The diversion program that Supervisor Tara Lawson Reamer has does not go through 211, it goes through RTFH.
Okay, so I will say that through the Community Information Exchange, which is called CIE, RTFH providers use that information exchange, and that's hosted by 211. So there is essentially a network that happens within that, but 211 is a little unique in that they also manage our hotline for us 24 hours a day. So we have that sort of direct contract with them.
I can say that the county program, it might be different than the one you're referencing, but they did a pilot as well, similar to HIP, but it's closed out now. It was aimed at seniors, right? Yeah, they're not taking any new referrals, so that's out of the homeless, I forget their name, homeless division.
The homeless, and we have conversations with them because when they're running something that looks a little slightly different than what we're running, we like to share data.
Yes.
Right? So and on outcomes and sort of how they're running the program. So you can almost take them as sort of like comparison pilots because they're doing it differently. And that's one of the things that the Urban Institute review and report would look at.
that's all.
Okay. All right, so we are moving on. I think Lisa, thank you for answering. We were going to be, yeah, we're way behind. So I apologize. That's on me. Lisa, thank you very much for the all the additional information. So let's go next quickly to the approval of the minutes for February 14th, 2025. No speaker slips have been submitted, so there is no public comment. Commissioners, any changes to the minutes, or can I entertain a motion?
So moved.
Motion by Vice Chair Klempner. Second by Commissioner Vasquez. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Any opposed? No abstentions? The motion passes unanimously. All right, Now we'll go to the consent agenda. As I mentioned at the beginning of today's meeting, I want to put item 100 and item 101 on the consent agenda. No speaker slips have been submitted on the consent agenda, so this concludes the public comment period for those items. Commissioners, any comments, or can I entertain a motion?
So moved.
We have a motion by Vice Chair Klempner, second by Commissioner Vasquez. Mr. Cushman.
So I had asked staff on item 100 why we would be taking all of our options now. I mean, the reason you have options is so you have flexibility when the time comes. So I just don't know why we're taking the second year or 2 additional 1 years. And I just don't understand why we.
I mean, frankly, there are not a lot of options for this particular work, and it is a HUD requirement, so it's a required process. Azucena can speak a little more to this. I did share that we have terms in every contract to cancel for convenience, so there's always an opportunity. This doesn't commit us to those option years.
Yep.
I think you covered it well. Equifax has proprietary agreements with about 60% of employers across the United States for income verification that prevents those same employers from contracting to other income verification services. So to Lisa's point, we don't have any other alternatives that provides the same automated, instantaneous results to determine or verify income. In the contract, or in the board request, we are requesting authorization to be able to execute the options to extend for the remainder of the 1-year options. It does not mean that we will be exploring those or executing them. We are actually piloting the same product through our Yardi system that will provide the same level of service for the same cost. So we're looking at piloting that option this summer. So if there is an alternative, we would not execute the options to extend.
So you're just, okay, so I didn't understand the item then. So what you're saying is you're getting permission from the board, and when the time comes.
Yes, we're not, sorry, and I also misunderstood the question, so I apologize. Yes, we are only executing the contract for this year. If we need them next year, we'll execute the next contract. But as Azucena mentioned, we have, okay, apologies that I misunderstood the question.
Not a problem.
All right. Commissioner Cushman's questions have been answered. So we will now, I have a motion by Vice Chair Klempner, a second by Commissioner Vasquez. On the consent agenda, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? None. No abstentions. Then the motion carries unanimously. We'll now move to item 102, which is the memorandum of understanding between the City and the Housing Commission for the administration of the Federal Home Investment Partnership Program. This should be fairly simple, based on my reading and understanding of this with Lisa. So we will, making the presentation, will be Vice President Jennifer Quitter and Housing Program Analyst Liliana Carrasco. I'm sorry, Caracoza. Thank you. Caracoza. Thank you. All right, please begin when you're ready.
Good morning, Chair Mitchell and Commissioners. The item before you today is a request to approve the execution of a Memorandum of Understanding and Subrecipient Agreement between the City of San Diego and the San Diego Housing Commission regarding the City of San Diego's administration of the Federal Home Investment Partnership Program. The U.S. Department of HUD and Urban Development, better known as HUD, awards home funds annually through a formula grant to participating jurisdictions. The City of San Diego is a participating jurisdiction, and the Housing Commission is a subrecipient as defined by the Home Final Rule. The Housing Commission has administered the home program on behalf of the city since 1991. Home funds are provided for construction of affordable housing, acquisition and rehabilitation of affordable housing, first-time homebuyer down payment assistance and counseling, and tenant-based rental assistance. The city prepares and circulates the draft MOU, which is then reviewed and approved by the City Attorney and Housing Commission Legal Counsel prior to execution of the agreement. In addition, the subrecipient agreement is drafted and circulated by the city annually, which outlines the budget and activity allocation for the upcoming fiscal year. In June of last year, City Council authorized the mayor or designee to negotiate and enter into the MOU with the Housing Commission. At the end of January of this year, the Housing Commission received the draft MOU from the city for review. The MOU will have a retroactive effective date of July 1st, 2024, and will expire on June 30th, 2029. Approval of this item will allow for administration of the home program by the Housing Commission and continued funding for eligible activities consistent with the city's 5-year consolidated plan. And then here are some examples of projects that have been completed and funded in part with home funds. Paul Downey Senior Residence received a total loan from the Housing Commission of $3,950,000. $1,800,000 of the loan amount was funded with home funds. This development consists of 79 units and a senior community center in the Claremont neighborhood and will serve seniors with incomes from 70% to 70%, from 30% to 70% of San Diego's area median income. SDHC also awarded 8 project-based vouchers. This development includes 6,000 square feet of community space, of which 1,800 will be for a private senior community area. Services for the senior population will include meals, workshops and classes, volunteer opportunities, health services, case management, and social activities. Paul Downey Senior Residence recently celebrated its grand opening. And then to your right, you'll see Nestor Senior Village, which received a total loan from the Housing Commission of $3,330,000. $2 million of that loan amount was funded in part with funded with home funds. This development completed construction in December of 2023. It's located in the Otay Mesa Nestor neighborhood and is supported by Housing for San Diego, the Housing Commission's Homelessness Action Plan. This development also includes 73 federal project-based vouchers and serves seniors experiencing homelessness with income levels ranging from 25% to 30% of San Diego's area median income. Site amenities include a community room, on-site manager's office, community kitchen, a laundry room, a computer room, social services office space, an outdoor gathering and recreation area. Staff recommends that the board take the actions detailed in the staff report and shown on the following slides. And I'll take a moment just so you can review. If the item is approved today, it will be taken forward to Housing Authority for consideration. And that concludes our presentation, and we are happy to answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
Thank you, Liliana. All right, fairly easy to understand, comprehend. Great job with the presentation. All right. Any questions, comments? All right. Seeing no questions or comments on this item, we do not have any public comment speaker slips that have been submitted. So if that's the case, I will entertain a motion on item 102.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Motion by Commissioner Cushman.
Seconded.
Second by Commissioner Vasquez. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, abstentions? The motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much. Thank you. All right, next we'll move on to item 103, and this is the loan recommendation for the Sierra Mesa Apartments. We will take public comments after the staff presentation, but we do not have any speaker slips thus far, so Vice President Jennifer Quater will be presenting this item. Jennifer, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Good morning, Chair Mitchell and Commissioners. The item before you today is a request to approve a proposed residual receipt loan in an amount not to exceed $2.5 million for the construction of Sierra Mesa Apartments. Sierra Mesa is the proposed construction of a 60-unit development, which is made up of 59 affordable units and 1 unrestricted or manager's unit, and is located at 3440 Sandrock Road in the Sierra Mesa neighborhood of San Diego in Council District 7. The proposed project's 59 affordable units are comprised of 1 and 2 bedroom units for individuals with income levels ranging from 30 to 60% of the area median income, which equates to $36,400 a year to $72,720 a year. The units will remain affordable for a term of 55 years. The project has been awarded Veterans Affairs Supportive Housing, or VASH, project-based vouchers. 30 units will be set aside for VASH-eligible veterans experiencing homelessness. The developer of the project is Community Housing Works, an experienced award-winning nonprofit developer headquartered in San Diego. Community Housing Works has successfully completed several developments with using Housing Commission capital funds. With respect to the proposed development, the Housing Commission awarded a preliminary award of up to $2.5 million and 30 VASH project-based vouchers. Services for all residents will be provided by Community Housing Works at no cost. Services will include financial well-being, next generation success, and health and wellness classes. The U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs will provide veterans with supportive services, including case management. They will also connect VASH participants with partners to provide transportation, health services, and food resources. This slide shows a site map of the development in proximity to schools, transit schools, and grocery stores. 2 bus stops are located within quarter mile of the site, while the closest school is less than 1/2 mile from the property. The total development cost of the project will be just under $44 million, which equates to a per unit cost of approximately $730,000. The developer is using a variety of funding sources, including a permanent loan, a proposed loan from the Housing Commission, a ground lease, and a loan from the City of San Diego, as well as federal tax credit equity. I'd like to note that in attachment 3, the project pro forma, it shows a city bridge to home loan of $3.5 million. However, the city subsequently increased their loan to $4 million, which is shown on this slide. With respect to the higher than average per unit cost, it is primarily due to the following reasons: rising construction costs, interest rates, and uncertainty in the insurance market, payment of prevailing wage, which is a result of the VASH project-based vouchers and accounts for a 25% increase in construction costs. Additional expenses are related to public improvement requirements such as sidewalks and streetscapes, and podium parking costing $1.8 million, which accounts for 5% of the total development cost. Units will be restricted at 30 to 60% of area median income for 55 years. Rents will range from $852 to $1,705 per month. Should this be approved today, the developer will apply for 9% tax credits next week. Should they be awarded an allocation in June, they will close on construction financing and start construction in December 2025. The project is anticipated to complete construction in August 2027. Here's the architect's rendering of the site. Staff recommends that the board take the actions detailed in the staff report and shown on the following slides. This concludes the presentation. A representative from the developer and I are available to answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Kreider. Appreciate it. All right, no speaker slips have been submitted for item 103, so this concludes public comment for this item. Commissioners, any questions, comments? Commissioner Vasquez.
Yes, I'm remembering to use the mic. Thank you very much for addressing the reasons for the additional increase in costs. It's excellent if we could see that on all the, anything moving forward, because I think that's going to be all of our questions. And even though we know, it's really helpful to find out exactly why we're paying so much more and put it out there on public record. So I appreciate you doing that, or your department doing that. So, and I'm in favor of the motion or of the item.
Okay. Commissioner Cushman?
I'll be voting in favor. However, on the record, I have to say I'm not happy with $732,000. First of all, I know that Sean and his team know what the heck they're doing, but I don't think there's a 25% additional cost to use prevailing wage. I think that's way too high a number. 10%, 12%, maybe. So I would like them to come back to you. As I say, I'll vote for the item. But I think their numbers don't make sense to me. They should not be spending that much money on this project. I'm involved in projects that are building a lot bigger units than this, a lot more units than this. I just think it's way too high. But as I say, I'll vote in favor of it, but I really would like them to come back and give us some answers on, because I don't believe it's 25% prevailing wage. In fact, I know it isn't.
So we can do a couple things. One, coming to the board next month is a cost study on the cost drivers of affordable housing. So we will actually be in front of you. Staff has been working for months with our consultants on this. That'll be happening next month. And we can actually just do a specific review of prevailing wage and how it affects projects. I think that's important to know. Certainly, we also see under Casey's work with homeless shelters and shelters, that work when we see some very significant impacts when we're dealing with prevailing wage. It's honestly shocking how much that can impact and drive cost, just that alone, let alone all the other things that, that Jennifer mentioned. I agree, it's really good to have that information in there, so thank you, Jennifer, to you and the team for doing that. But I think we will be having, just plan to be here for a long meeting next month because, one, we have our proposed budget, and then in addition, we're going to have a conversation around cost drivers
Yeah, we
in
moved
affordable
104.
housing.
We moved 104 specifically based
Because
on
of that.
this conversation we're having about the cost here. So I think next meeting we'll get a lot more detail.
But I do think it's in order to ask the applicant here to come back to our folks and just let us know that, if they would, please.
Okay,
Yeah, no, I can definitely work with the developer to have them come back with that, so.
wonderful. That 25% did stick out, so. All right, seeing no further comments or questions, I will entertain a motion on a second on this item. Motion by Commissioner Vasquez.
Second.
Second by Vice Chair Klumpner. We've heard comments from Commissioner Cushman, and I look forward to next meeting's discussion. Okay, all those in favor of the item, signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? No abstentions. The motion passes unanimously. And we are at the end. Well, as I said, we moved item 104 to the next meeting. And we will now, the board will go into closed session. Before the board goes into closed session, there are no public comments or speaker slips involved. So I will ask General Counsel Chuck Christensen to please announce the closed session agenda.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The San Diego Housing Commission will meet in closed session to discuss its closed session agenda, which is item Roman numeral 4. It's 2 items, both of existing litigation, and that will conclude the matters that will be discussed in closed session.
Thank you much. Happy Friday, everybody. You guys can, start chattering and laughing it up.
the Housing Commission met in closed session to discuss its closed session agenda. There was discussion of the both lawsuits, and there was no action taken. That concludes the matters that were discussed in closed session.
The board concluded its closed session at 10:53 and reconvened open session at 10:54. This concludes the board's meeting today. The meeting is adjourned at 10:55. Thank you.